Alright, this is 8-6 notes, law of sines and cosines. So on the front is law of sines, on the back side is the law of cosines. Starting with the front side, law of sines, it says in any triangle there is a special relationship between the angles of the triangle and the lengths of the sides opposite the angles. You use the law of sines if you have two sides and an angle or two angles and a side. Okay, so law of sines, your formula that you're going to use is little a, which stands for the length of the side, across from angle A, so sine A, is equal to little b, which is the length of the side B, which is across from your sine angle B, little c, sine across from your angle C. So it's just a ratio. So let's do a couple examples. On this first example, you can't use 45, 90 because there's not a right angle. You can't use 30, 60, 90 because there's not a right angle. You can't use any trig because there's not a right angle, and you cannot use Pythagorean theorem because you only have one side, and again, there's no right angle. It's not a right triangle. So you're going to use law of sines. So what law of sines says is you look at your sides here. So I have B is one of my sides, 30 is my other side, and you look at the angle across from it. So 74 would match up with this, and 45 would match up with the 30. So we're going to write a ratio here. So you put your side on top, so B over sine of the angle that's opposite from it, so that's going to be 74 degrees, and that's going to be equal to, again, you do your side, so that's 30, and then we have sine of 45. So to solve this, you just cross multiply. So you will have B times the sine of 45 is equal to 30 times the sine of 74. And to get B by itself, you just divide both sides by sine of 45. So over here, those cross off. So in your calculator, you just type in 30 times the sine of 74, hit enter, and then divide that answer by the sine of 45, hit enter, and we're rounding to the nearest tenth, so it should come out to 40.8. And there's no units on here, so whatever units it would be, feet, centimeters, whatever, that's the length of that side. Also, make sure your calculator is in degree mode. If it's not in degree mode, you won't get the right answer. Okay, so number 2. So again, first thing you want to look at are your sides. So you have 24 here, and you have D here. D is across 82. If you look at 24, you're like, well, I don't have an angle measurement for angle E. You can actually find it because there's 180 degrees in a triangle. So if you take away 82 and take away 40, you will have 58 degrees left over. So in this top corner, we'll have 58 degrees. So now we just set up our proportion. So 24 over sine of 58. That's going to be equal to D sine of 82. So now I'm going to cross multiply. I always like my variable on the left side, so I'm going to put D times the sine of 58 is equal to 24 times the sine of 82. Then we're going to divide both sides by sine of 58 to get D by itself. So all that is crossed off, and when you type in the calculator 24 times sine of 82 divided by sine of 58 and round to the nearest tenth, you will get 28. And there's no units again on the triangle, so that is that. Right, so we have 4 more examples to work out, and we are solving for x. So first thing again, you just identify your sides. So here's x, which is across from the 80. And then here's 12, which is across from the 40. So you just set up your proportion. X over the sine of 80 is equal to 12 over the sine of 40. And then the only work that you have to show is what the setup would be. So if you know how to cross multiply and what you're going to have to divide by, you can show me that you do 12 sine of 80 divided by sine of 40. That's all the work that I need. Now, if you have to show the other step in between those two, just for your sake, then that's completely fine. Whatever's going to help you get the correct answer. So then we're going to do 12 times sine of 80, divide that answer by the sine of 40, and you will end up getting 18.4. And again, there's no units on this triangle, so you just leave it as 18.4. Right, number 2. So again, first thing you want to do is look at your sides. So this x is across from the 52. This 20 is across from this angle. We don't have that angle measurement, so we'll do 180 minus 52 minus 91 to figure out how many degrees we have left over, and that will give you 37. So this is going to be across from 37 degrees. So now we set up our proportion. X over sine of 52 is equal to, we have 20 over sine of 37. And now we're going to just cross multiply and divide. So what I end up getting is x equals 20 times sine of 52 divided by sine of 37. And so when you type that in and then divide it by sine of 37, round to the nearest tenth, you will get 26.2. All right, 2 more. So again, you look for your sides. So this is across the 60, and then my other side I have is 35. I can figure out what my angle measurement is by doing 180 minus 60 minus 35. And that will end up getting me 85. So now I can set up my proportion. X over sine of 60 is equal to 35 over sine of 85. So then we just cross multiply. So you have x would equal to 35 times sine of 60. Divide that by sine of 85. And when you multiply and divide, round to the nearest tenth, you will get 30.4. Right, last one. Again, look at your sides. So x is across the 17. 25 is across 72 degrees. So I have everything I need to set my proportion. X over sine of 17 is equal to 25 over sine of 72. So when you cross multiply, x would be equal to 25 times sine of 17 divided by sine of 72. And so multiply and then divide, round to the nearest tenth, you will get 7.7. And that is how you do law of sines. So it's just setting up a proportion and cross multiplying. So notice you have typically 2 angles and 2 sides to set up your proportion and figure out the missing side. For law of cosines, you use law of cosines if you have 2 sides and an included angle. or if you have all three sides. Now notice again, these are not right triangles, so that's why why we have the law signs, law cosines is something else you can use if you do not have a right triangle. Okay, formula for law cosines is a little big, kind of long, but it's not too bad. So law cosine is c squared is equal to a squared plus b squared minus 2ab cosine of angle C. And you can change these out. So if you're trying to solve for a, little a, then you would have a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2 bc cosine of a. So you just switch out the letters, and we'll get into that in the examples. So there we go. First one. Okay, so I have this side that they're talking about and another side, and this is the included angle. So you have to make sure your angle is included between the two sides, and I'm trying to solve for C. So across the B, this will be little b. Across the A, this will be little a. And I have everything else. So for my formula, we will have C squared is equal to A squared is 12, so 12 squared, plus B squared, which is 10, so 10 squared, minus 2 times A times B, so 2 times 12 times 10, times cosine, zoom out just a little bit, cosine of angle C, which is 48 degrees. So I like to write down just a couple of numbers to help me out. 12 squared is 144, 10 squared is 100, 2 times 12 times 10 is 240, cosine of 48 degrees. When I add this up, I get C squared is equal to, that would give me 244 minus 240 cosine of 48 degrees. Again, your calculator has to be in degree mode, so whenever you type this stuff in, just make sure you have it in degree mode. So 244 minus 240 times cosine of 48 will give you 83.408, lots of numbers. So when you do that, you need to hit the square root key, so second square root key, and then you need to hit second answer. That way it copies every single decimal, and your answer will be approximate. When you take square root of both sides, around to the nearest tenth, you should get 9.1. And again, there are not any units on the triangle, so we just leave it as 9.1. Alright, number 2, find the measure of angle A. So I'm trying to figure out what this one is. So across from angle A is little a, across from angle B is little b, and across from angle C is little c. Since I'm trying to do A, my formula is the same, just my variables are different. So a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. So just a little bit flipping flopping, but now we're going to go ahead and plug everything in. So 7 squared is equal to 8 squared, sorry, not 8, 5 squared plus 8 squared minus 2 times 5 times 8, and then cosine A, because I'm trying to figure out what the measure of angle A is. So we'll have 49 is equal to 5 squared plus 8 squared, 25 and 64 will give me 89. 2 times 5 is 10, 10 times 8 is 80, so minus 80, cosine A. I can subtract 89 minus 80, and, 49 minus 89, and then I'm going to divide that by negative 80. So 49 minus this 89, divide that by negative 80 would give me a half, so 0.5 is equal to cosine A. So to find the measure of angle A, you have to do your inverse cosine. So the measure of angle A, round to the nearest degree, would be give me 60 degrees. Alright, so we got 2 more examples. It says find x, round angle measures to the nearest degree, and sine measures to the nearest tenth. So here we're trying to solve for x. That's across this angle, so this would be little a. Across big B is little b, and across big C is little c. Okay, so I'll do my work underneath. So since we are trying to find a, my equation will be A squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. We'll plug in what I know, so a squared is equal to 14 squared plus 12 squared minus 2 times 14 times 12 cosine of 62. So a squared will equal to 14 squared and 12 squared will give me 340. 12 times, or 2 times 14 times 12 will give me 336 cosine of 62 degrees. So when I type all that in, I will get a squared is equal to 182.257, lots of other numbers. So you hit second square root, second answer. So that way it'll copy all the decimals. Round to the nearest tenth, we'll get 13.5. Right, and then the last one, same sort of setup here. We're trying to solve for x. So x that's across from a, so here's a again. Cross the b, little b, cross from angle c is little c. So a squared is equal to b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cosine of a. So a squared is equal to 18 squared plus 28 squared minus 2 times 18 times 28 cosine of 59 degrees. A squared is equal to 18 squared plus 28 squared will give me 1,108. 2 times 18 times 28 will give me 1008. And then I have cosine of 59 degrees. Whenever you put all of that in the calculator, you will get 588.8416 blah 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 blah. So second square root, second answer, because that way it'll copy all those decimals. You don't have to type them all in. Round to the nearest tenth will give you 24.3. And again, there's no units on the triangle, so we just leave it as 24.3. And that is it for law of cosines.